Hi. Hi, thank you guys for being here. My name is Paula. I'm going to be talking to you about behavioral economics, trying to bring it a little bit to free-to-play games. So yeah, let's get this underway. It's end of the day, so let's get going. So this is a very big picture of me and my tattoos. In case you're wondering, those are some of my tattoos, but that's a Magritte painting right there. And so I'm a psychology major, actually, which is an interesting fact. I have a graduate degree in marketing, so after psychology, I went into that. I have 12 years of user acquisition and product, out of which 7 in the gaming industry. So, you know, my psychology major plays pretty nicely into the free-to-play industry and also into my topic. A little bit about Square Enix Montréal. So you guys have seen some really good talks up until now from my colleagues. We're part of Square Enix West. We have around 130 employees, 130 million downloads in 175 countries. So you've probably heard of the titles Hitman Sniper, Lara Croft Go, Hitman Go. That's what we do. We're focused on mobile games. And that's also my forte. I wanted to start with what we aren't covering, just to align expectations. So we're not really going to talk about live ops optimization on bundles. So suiting bundles to show a specific user what they need at that exact moment. It's what we call player progression bundles. For instance, he needs a bit of a resource to level up, resource X, and you show them a package that has that exact amount exactly when he needs it. So we're not really going to go into detail about that. Optimization of IAP bundles according to player behavior. So showing, again, a bundle with a price that makes sense to a user because he spent X over their lifetime or Y in the last 30 days. So you would show him someone that has spent over $100, you would show him a larger package than someone that has spent 1 or 0, right? Optimization of IAP bundles as well, according to game genre. So a dolphin in RPG game may spend 10 times more than a whale. And, you know, other techniques like making bundles predictably unpredictable. So this is a term that I like using that I saw in a Google talk. It's to avoid cannibalism, making bundles predictably unpredictable is helpful. So people know that you might have a sale every Tuesday, but they don't know the content of that bundle. So this doesn't, makes them not cannibalize, not hold back on a sale that they would do, right? But what we will be covering, which is the most important part, so we will be talking about behavioral economics, which is a topic that I find really dear to my heart. We will be talking about the importance of psychology on purchases and how psychology and UX affect the purchase decisions. Starting with behavioral economics. So what is it? It's basically the fusion of economy with behaviorism, a branch of psychology which considers that behavior is a response to environmental stimuli. So for the behaviorists, behaviors are learned through an interaction with the environment. Behavioral economics looks into the cognitive, social, and emotional factors that influence our purchasing decisions. And now I want to go through a few of the concepts with you guys. This is what this presentation is about. Hopefully it'll be as interesting to you as it is to me. A bit about decoy pricing. So what is it? It's when one's preference for an option changes after a more similar but less attractive options are added. So to illustrate this, we have a famous case study by The Economist, where they offered 3 pricing points. The first one was just for subscription with online access. The second one, it was just print access to the magazine. And the third one was both print and online access. So, you know, at a first glance, this may look a little bit weird because you have 2, the middle and the last one are the same price. but it's there for a reason, right? The middle one is the decoy pricing. It's just there to make the last one more attractive. And this is from this example, and many of the things I'm going to talk about is from Dan Ariely's Predictably Irrational book, which I strongly suggest you guys read. So decoy pricing, according to that example, right? The web only, without the decoy price, the web only version converted 68% of users. So 68% of users were buying the web only, and 32% of users were buying the print only. The minute that decoy price in the middle was added of 125, of course, nobody got that. Nobody thought that it was interesting enough. But the other one, number 3, became so much more interesting. So they were able to upsell. And a lot more users were actually making the $125 purchase instead of the $59 one. So that's how decoy pricing can be really, really useful. In terms of free-to-play games, I like to use Hearthstone's example. And because not only, I mean, they have 4 options. This doesn't only work with 3 options. But for you guys that play it, they have 4 pack sizes for purchase. So 2 packs for $2.99, 7 for $9.99, 15 for $19.99, and 40 packs for $49.99. If you do the math and you analyze this, the 7 packs for $9.99 isn't very attractive at all when you look at all the options. But this less attractive price is there just to subtly hint players to either make several small purchases or make one large purchase, right? So this is how they present it in their store. So this middle price here is supposed to push players to either one end or the other end of the spectrum. So yeah, that was decoy pricing. Anchor pricing is our next thing to look at. So anchor pricing is a cognitive bias that describes the human tendency to anchor oneself or focus on part of the information received when in a decision process. And interesting is that this is even done subconsciously. We'll see a few examples. In another way, it designates how difficult it is for humans to distance themselves from the influence of the first impression, the priming. Another wordy slide, but we'll get to the example soon. So the prices, they are commonly anchored in our memories based on general associations like high, low. They're rarely remembered as exact values, even for if you're a user acquisition manager and someone asks you, okay, what's a expensive CPI, you know, for a casual game in the US, you will say something like maybe 2 or 250. You know, you won't memorize the exact price, the exact down to the cents, right? When memorizing an anchor price for different products, we can use this as a reference, comparing them to relative values. So knowing if it is expensive or not, right? We do a priming of this anchor. This occurs because we have a need for consistency in order to avoid cognitive dissonance. So cognitive dissonance is a psychology word, a psychology term. It's the state of having inconsistent thought, beliefs, or attitudes, especially relating to behavioral decisions. And us humans, we have a need to be consistent to avoid this. And priming is an effect of the implicit memory, where the exposure to a stimulus influences the response to another stimulus. So it's the famous first impression, right? So this is basically saying that once you get an anchor price in your head, that's the first impression, and usually that's what sticks, right? So on to an example to make it more tangible. This is a very common exercise that has been done with several things. Basically, in this table you guys see, you have the social security number of people and how much they are willing to pay for Belgian chocolates. In this case, it was Belgian chocolates, but usually this experiment is done with whatever you can think of but that people don't have an anchor pricing for. It can't be, a bottle of wine or like a pack of rice if it's something you already have an anchor for. This experiment is done with exercise bikes, things that you don't really have a anchor for. So how was this done? They were asked, the people that were doing the experiment, they were asked, the subjects, to write their social security number on a piece of paper. And then they were asked to price a box of Belgian chocolates, right? And this is how subtle this is. The higher the number, the higher the ending of the number of their social security, the higher they would price. So just by the fact of writing down a number that was bigger, that anchored them to write a bigger price. It's really crazy, but it is irrational. And a lot of times this is how this works, right? And if you look at big e-commerce sites like Amazon, they expose expensive products next to cheap ones a lot of times, and it's using this strategy. In an IAP store for a game, you can mention how many of those items were sold. Like more than 5,000 packets were sold this month, and that number helps, prime users into paying more or being willing to pay a little bit more, even if irrationally or unconsciously. So this is an example from Humble Bundle. They not only have this big number of bundles sold, which serves two purposes, which is the anchoring of a high price, again, to influence that priming moment, but also this serves as social validation. It shows that all of these people have already bought this, so it means it's probably good. And we're going to talk about social validation as well later. So I wanted to go also now into the principles of persuasion. So we were talking about Dan Ariely's book before, and this is another classic book by Robert Cialdini, Influenced the Psychology of Persuasion. And I would like to discuss a few of the principles with you and how we can apply them. These are the 6 principles he talks about. These factors have a major influence on people. So before I go into them, what I wanted to say as well is that above all, your game must be fun, right? We talk about persuasion and influence, and it seems like manipulation and things like that. That's not the point at all. It's just your game has to be fun, otherwise none of this is going to work. And this is just to help move users along. It's not to manipulate them or anything like that. It's just to hint them towards something, because you are building a business as well, right? So for Robert Cialdini, these are the 6 factors. Reciprocity, so the feeling that we are obliged to reciprocate a behavior. Scarcity, the feeling that something is scarce and more valuable, so we want it more. Consensus, people will use actions of others as a mirror to their own. Again, social validation, we are going to be talking about that. Authority, so authority is the need to tend to follow the lead of a knowledgeable expert person on a subject. Consistency, again, cognitive dissonance. It's the need of being consistent with something that we did previously or something we chose. Liking is we're more comfortable accepting people we like and their opinions and suggestions. So for the sake of time, I'm going to focus on the first 3 ones. That's why they're underlined, because we didn't have, if I were to go into all of them, we would be here forever. So this is the 3 I wanted to focus on. So reciprocity is when something is given to someone, someone feels obliged to reciprocate the favor, right? So I think everyone has been in this situation where you get a wedding invitation and then you feel like when it's your time to get married, you have to invite them because they invited you. This is reciprocity, right? And it's probably the most common mechanic that is used in free-to-play games. This gifting mechanic is the most classic example of reciprocity in games, right? To the point where some developers have chosen to put accept and send already in the same button, right? This creates a virality cycle. It used to create a bigger cycle before because Facebook made a big deal about this. Now Facebook is not putting so much into this anymore because they want to make more money out of their ads product. But this used to be very effective, and it's how a bunch of the initial companies grew, right? But like I said, wedding invitation is in life, we have this situation coming over and over again, or Hare Krishnas that give you a free book or flower. You feel that you have to give them something, have to give them an aid for that, right? This is an experiment that was also done. The behavioral economics people, they love to do these experiments. So the hypothesis is that in the experiment was if the waiter brings a little gift with the bill, patrons will feel obliged to reciprocate, to give a higher tip, right? And the result was the following from the three situations. When the waiter would give one candy with the bill, this raised the amount of tips they were given by 3%. When the waiters gave 2 candies, they garnered an increase of 14% in the tips. And then when they gave 1 candy and complimented the patrons, like, since you guys are really cool, you know, here's some more candy, it would have an even bigger impact, a 23% increase in the tipped amount. So this is a very strong thing for us human beings, the feeling that we need to give back if we receive something. The next one is scarcity. So it's basically saying that, you know, if something is scarce, we will desire it more just because it's rare and scarce, right? We're afraid of losing the one-of-a-kind things or missing out on desirable situations. So the fear of missing out, basically. Scarcity generates a sense of urgency in the moment of purchase because it generates fear of missing out or the fear of being left out. Scarce things, they become immediately more desirable than abundant ones. And some common examples that a lot of, not only games, but a lot of products use is the limited time offers or a limited quantity of a product, just the first 10 ones, you know, first 20 purchases, and rarity levels, which is very common for games specifically. Yeah, and this is the example I wanted to show in terms of games, is the using rares and the guarantee on rares to upsell and to increase the conversion of your IAP, right? So basically Fallout Shelter, when the player buys a pack, they are guaranteed a rare card or better. So this type of things really increases your conversion rate of the packs, right? In this example, I wanted to bring also an example from e-commerce just because they're so good at this. Booking.com, they show these pop-ups saying that dozens of people are viewing the same ad for a hotel, and that not too long ago someone made a reservation. This compels us to go and close the deal, right? Because we see all these things and we believe it's going to finish and we're not going to have the chance of booking this hotel. So we feel inclined to rush to do so. It's very, it's something very impactful that they do. And last, out of the principles of persuasion, we have consensus that I've been calling social validation. So it's when we don't know what an expected behavior would be in a given situation, we would look to others to imitate what they're doing and to guide our actions, right? Let's see what everyone is doing. Because if everyone's doing something, it's probably good, right? Not always, but that's the way we think as humans. So the opinions from other people and peers play a great part in our purchase decision making moments, right? So in this recent global study by Redbox, you guys can see here that star rating and recommendation from friends and family, they're ranked second and third in the list of factors that influence consumers the most when downloading an app. So yeah, so this is basically showing how strong social validation is, right? As an example, in games, we have Hitman Snipers, one of the games that I cited that is from our studio. It has a 4.4 rating with over 820,000 reviews in Google Play. When compared to competitors, it outperforms most of them in either rating or quantity of reviews, right? So when users look at this at the store and they look at the rating and how many reviews and also how many downloads this game has, they are immediately more drawn to this game than to others that don't do this, don't have such high or good numbers, right? So waiting in queues at a restaurant, that's also a like day-to-day situation when this happens, right? So imagine walking up to two restaurants and one is completely empty and the other one has a queue outside. Without any knowledge of either restaurant, which one would you choose, right? I've been in that situation several times where I look and it's the only empty restaurant in the street, but it's so empty that you're like, should I go there or not, right? And now I wanted to quickly touch upon some pricing strategies that are quite interesting. Some of them are more obvious, some are very weird, and I selected just to give you guys a glimpse into this. Again, we could talk for hours just about pricing strategies, but I selected a few. So this link here is the enormous guide to pricing psychology. It is actually enormous, and I also recommend that you guys check it out because there are so many interesting things there. This first one I chose is reduce the left digit by 1. It's a very simple, well-known tactic, right? Purchase decisions, like I said, often happen irrationally, but predictable patterns can be observed within this irrationality. So one of the things that's consistently observed is when you reduce the number by 1 here, the left digit by 1, the friction, the user's friction and cognitive load in purchasing will diminish, right? The more friction you have at the time of purchase, the less likely it'll be for someone finishing that purchase. So you want to reduce all the friction. When the users, they look at 0.99 or 1, or here, when they look at 1.99 and 2, they anchor 1, and here they anchor 2, like we said about anchor pricing. So the conversion rate, when you reduce the left digit by 1, increases considerably in all the cases, no matter the price point, right? So this is a very typical one. To a more interesting one. So pick prices with fewer syllables, right? So just the processing time and the cognitive load it takes to say the price out loud in our head might be enough to make a user give up on that purchase, right? So if you say 27.82, it's 7 syllables, rather than 28.16, which is 5 syllables. And, you know, according to all the research that was made, if you choose a shorter syllable, it reduces the friction because it's less time of that person saying that number and actually thinking about the purchase, right? So this is a really weird example that I like using because it's something that most people are unaware of. The third pricing strategy I choose is removing the comma. So it's the same thing with as well with the previous one, because if you read in English 1,499, it's 10 syllables rather than reading 1499, which is 5 syllables. But also the comma, it brings a lot of focus into the 1,000, right? So it's not so good to bring this focus to a 4, in this case, to a 4th digit number, right? So removing the comma usually works. Something that is cool as well and that I've tested in the past is the price per day. So instead of mentioning the total price of the subscription in your game, which is the case where I tested it, explicitly show the daily price to be paid. So instead of $14.99 a month, it would be 49 cents per day. And what worked even better for me was when you compare it to everyday purchases that are pretty cheap, right? So like you'll be spending less with this than with a cup of coffee or a stick of gum. You know, these are very useful techniques to use. The other one I chose is to remove the references to money. So here on the right, you see an example from the game Rider. They avoid using dollar signs here. There's a UX matter here to be discussed because this is not necessarily so good for the user experience, but it does remove the user from thinking about this as a purchase, right? They don't associate it so much with the pain of purchasing. And since I mentioned UX, I wanted to do a little point about this. So in Marvel Contest of Champions, the user is first shown all the vanity items in the store that are more visually attractive and impressive. So as you can see here, and to collect the crystal that they've gained for free, they have to scroll all the way down. So this flow aims to do a priming on the player so that he returns to the store frequently and he sees the attractive and expensive stuff first, right? And then he has to go through all of that to then get to what he wants. The free items are deliberately hidden from the player's sight. And this is also very common. In the game, the Harry Potter game Puzzles, it's a match 3 games they have. It's also the same situation. I'm going to play a very short video so you guys can see that you go into the shop and you scroll all the way down to collect your free gold. And then you do this every day and you see the offers every day. So you get primed into that. And eventually you could purchase something that you see that's attractive. And this is a technique that's very common in supermarkets or shopping malls to make you go through, you know, everything before you get to what you want. So in supermarkets, usually the everyday items are right at the back. So you would walk through everything until you get there and maybe do a purchase in that sense, right? Of course, there is a balance there. Again, UX is always the first thing to be considered because the most important thing is the user experience and it's your game being fun. That's the most important thing. But there is a balance you can reach where you can obtain better conversions in your IAPs and not hurt the user experience. So that's the constant conversation between product managers like myself and our UX peeps. And just to finish, as a bonus round, I wanted to talk to you guys about some other effects as well. So the endowment effect is one that I really like, and it's used a lot in games as well. It's just it says that we tend to value things more when they belong to us. So people connect sentimental values to items because of everything we lived through with that item and the legacy we've built with it and the effort we put into it, right? So Candy Crush Friends and a lot of other games, this started with social casino games, the piggy bank mechanic, but now a lot of casual games I can think of, they use it. Candy Crush Friends, Homescapes, Gardenscapes, they all use the piggy bank mechanic. So a player's piggy bank will fill up with hard currency as you play. And you feel that you have filled up, right? It's your effort and hard work that has filled up that piggy bank. So you feel like you own whatever's stored there. So this entitlement increases the chance of the user paying to get that piggy bank because it's rightfully theirs. They put the effort into making it full, right? So we tend to overvalue something that we own regardless of the market value. In another way, people put a greater value on things once they have established ownership. And analysis paralysis, it's also something that's very important when you're building your store in your free-to-play game. This is another experiment in a supermarket. They had a display with 24 different types of jams. versus 6 different types. Same brand. Everything, variables were kept to a minimum. More people were drawn to the display with 24 gems because it was big and it was flashy. But the amount of people that actually bought gems, which I'm calling here a conversion, was much smaller. With a smaller display, they saw a 10 times increase in the number of purchases. So more traffic or more impressions doesn't necessarily mean more conversions. So a lot of times less is more. So limiting the options is a lot of times the best way to inhibit analysis paralysis. And in games, we have this example as well all the time. Here we have Diamond Digger Saga and Farmville 2. They only show 3 offers, and all the other offers are hidden behind an all offers button. They diminish the player's cognitive load of decision making, of thinking what they have to get, and maybe putting them into this cycle of never deciding. Social casino games, they do this very well, and they couple this with one of the things I said I wouldn't really dive into, which is choosing the price according to the how much the player has spent, right? So this is really, if you combine what you show with how much the user has spent in the last X days, and you cater the bundles to, you know, that player's spend, and the rest you hide behind an all offers button or a show all packages button, has a two-way effect of diminishing analysis paralysis and also catering that bundle to the user. So it's very powerful. And to sum it up, when faced with many choices, decisions tend to become more complicated, sometimes causing cognitive overload. Therefore, by giving people more choices, we may lose revenue and conversion instead of increasing them. So that was it. It was a lot of content. I would like to thank you guys, and sorry for rushing through it, but it was a lot of stuff. I'd like to say 2 things. First, that we are hiring, so please, we have a lot of positions open. That's the link to our site that we just revamped, so go check it out. It's pretty cool. And I will meet you guys in 5 minutes in our kiosk, in the Square Enix Montréal kiosk, for a Q&A. So that's it. Thank you guys so much.